For this week's episode, we're going to be talking about more recognition in Canada for international healthcare education, ExpressEntry Draw number 223, changes to the International Student Program in Quebec, the Rainbow Refugee Society and its partnership with the IRCC, as well as the updates to Grandparent/Parent Sponsorship Program. On June 6th, Marie-France Lalonde, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship, announced that $1.5 million will be used to help foreign qualifications be accepted in Canada. This project will help internationally educated healthcare professionals fill key positions in the healthcare labor market by recognizing more internationally acquired education. It will also enable the National Newcomer Navigation Network, or N4, to serve as an information platform for newcomers to see if their qualifications will be accepted. This project will also aim to identify and remove barriers faced by internationally educated healthcare professionals.
ExpressEntry is an online immigration application system for skilled workers, which includes the Provincial Nominee Program, or PNP. Candidates are placed in a pool and draws take place about every 2 weeks. The latest ExpressEntry draw took place on May 25th. The total number of applicants in the pool was just over 200,000, and the draw selected 589 candidates, with the lowest scoring candidate having a points total of 741.
On June 7th, the Honourable Sean Fraser announced only graduates coming from a subsidized program of study will have access to work permits. The restriction involves all levels of study and will be starting on September 1st, 2023.
The Canadian ImmigrantFair takes place every year, and it takes place in multiple locations across Canada. The fair has hiring companies, recruiters, educational institutions, immigration service providers, and settlement service providers, all in the same place, gathered to answer your questions. If you're currently in Canada and want help with pursuing an avenue of immigration, this fair is for you. The next event is taking place on June 23rd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Metro Toronto Convention Centre in Toronto, Ontario. The following event will take place on July 8th in Winnipeg, August 26th in Calgary, and finally November 3rd in Vancouver. If you are not in Canada at this time and you missed the event, do not worry, it is annual, so there will be more events next year.
Happy Pride Month, everybody! Today we're going to be talking about Rainbow Refugee, which is a Vancouver, BC-based non-for-profit organization that was founded in 2000. Its main mission is to provide safe and equitable migration for LGBTQ+ peoples. RainbowRefugee.com includes valuable information such as how LGBTQ+ refugees can find protection in Canada, job opportunities, COVID-19 resources, news, and more. It supports people who are seeking protection inside of Canada as well as outside because of persecution due to sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or HIV status. Rainbow Refugee's vision is to provide a safe and just world for LGBTQ+ peoples. Rainbow Refugee brings the perspectives of LGBTQ+ peoples into refugee policy and practices through knowledge exchange, briefs and testimony to Parliament, as well as public and service provider education. This organization provides asylum for refugees inside and outside of Canada. The step-by-step process as to how to apply for asylum can be found on RainbowRefugee.com. Also, Canadian citizens and permanent residences are encouraged to sponsor a refugee, as well as donate and volunteer. If you want to learn more about how to get involved, be sure to visit RainbowRefugee.com. Happy Pride!
In previous episodes, we've actually talked about the family sponsorship program for different members of the family, the spousal one, dependents, as well as parents and grandparents. However, there have been some updates made to the sponsorship program specifically for parents and grandparents, and these are in response to growing frustrations that are occurring in Canadian citizens as well as permanent residents who want to sponsor their parents and grandparents. And so we're going to talk about these changes, what they mean, and how maybe there's still some room to improve. So let's talk about the current system. In order to have your parent or grandparent become a permanent resident, you can sponsor them through the Family Sponsorship Program. First, you must apply to be a sponsor. Once you show your intent to become a sponsor, you are then selected through a draw. If you are selected, then your family member is also put into a pool and hopefully selected. And once that occurs, then you begin the application process. Basically, with the application process, there are also other requirements, including the sponsor to have a minimum income requirement. You have to make a certain amount of money in order to be eligible to sponsor your parent or grandparent. So the way that sponsors and their parent or grandparent are selected is a lottery system. And this system was introduced by the Liberal government when they came into power. A lot of sponsors find this method pretty unfair because it is completely random as to who gets to actually apply in the end. According to the 2021 Annual Report to Parliament on Immigration, the number of people in the inventory for grandparents and parents was double the number of those actually admitted in the year 2019. Compared to dependents and spouses, the number of those in inventory was actually lower than the number of those admitted in 2019. So this basically means it is a lot easier to sponsor a spouse or a dependent than it is to sponsor a parent or grandparent. Alternatively, if you're having difficulty gaining PR status for your parent or grandparent, you can also have them come over temporarily using a super visa. A super visa is a multiple entry visa that allows the visa holder to re-enter the country multiple times within a 10-year period, and they can stay in Canada for up to 2 consecutive years at a time. The visa holder must have purchased private Canadian healthcare insurance so that they do not use the public healthcare insurance. The host of the visa holder still must meet a minimum income requirement. So there are some frustrations that people are dealing with for this program as well. Medical insurance in Canada in the private sector is very expensive, and meeting that minimum income requirement is rather difficult to do for hosts of visa holders. Currently, there is a new bill being proposed and being considered right now to deal with this problem, and it is called the Reuniting Families Act, or Bill C-242. So these frustrations have led to this new bill being considered in the House of Commons, and the bill would extend the number of consecutive years that temporary visa holders can stay from 2 to 5. It would also allow the sponsored parent or grandparent to purchase international health insurance, and it requires the Minister of Immigration to write a report on reducing the minimum income requirement of the sponsor. Almost simultaneously, on June 7th, the IRCC announced changes to be made to the Super Visa program. According to NDP immigration critic Jenny Kwan, these new changes to the Super Visa may sideline the bill. So the changes that are going to be made include allowing the consecutive years of stay to go from 2 to 5, with an option to possibly extend even further another 2 years, totaling 7 consecutive years for the super visa holder. The Minister of Immigration would also designate international health insurance companies as options for the sponsored family members. So this would mean they wouldn't have to buy Canadian private insurance, but could get cheaper insurance elsewhere. These changes will take effect in July. So what is not included in the super visa changes, but is included in the bill that has been proposed, is the mention of changing the required minimum income for the sponsor, as well as the lottery method of selecting applicants. Canadians and permanent residents are worried that these smaller changes may compete with the bill that is being considered. The Family Sponsorship Program is an important one for permanent residents and citizens in Canada. We will continue to update you on the changes as they unfold. So, The role of parents and grandparents, I think, is a really important one for lots of different cultures around the world, but in Canada as well. Adrian, you had mentioned that your dad, after he had immigrated to Canada soon after, he also sponsored his parents. What was that like?
Yeah, so essentially my dad migrated to Canada from the Philippines in 1996. He was working here for about 2 years before he brought over my mom in 97 and then my grandparents, my Lola and Lolo, in 98. And from the stories that he told me, it took a long time. It was a long process, and I'm sure that the systems and everything in place are completely different now than they were in 1996. But it took a long time, and he had to work quite hard to, gain his experience in Canada. But it was definitely worth it because they essentially came right when I was born and helped take care of me, basically.
Right. So you essentially grew up with your grandparents in the house. And I guess, how important was that to you and your family?
It was really important. Both of my parents worked. So that means my brother and I were raised by my Lola and Lolo. And it was great. Like, it helped my parents a lot because they didn't have to pay for childcare and they didn't have to worry about my brother and I not being fed when we got back from school or not being taken care of. And it also helped me connect with my culture, like, at a very young age because my Lola and Lolo were from the Philippines literally their whole lives until they moved here. And so they cooked for me, like, traditional Filipino food. Like, I learned Tagalog as my first language because I was communicating with them and my parents, and that was just the easiest language it was for us. And yeah, so it was extremely important, and they definitely played a big role in raising my brother and I, yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're touching on a really important concept there, not just for immigrants of different cultures. Even here in Canada, I was born and raised in Canada, and my grandparents helped a lot with my upbringing. My parents are helping a lot with my sister's kids. And basically, if you don't have grandparents around to help out with that, your only other option is daycare, and daycare is so expensive, some people can't afford it, and so they have to not work. And that just basically contributes to it doesn't contribute to the economy because we have less people working. So I think there's this North American idea that grandparents don't play a very important role, but it's not true at all. And of course, beyond the role that they play, they're very important to us.
Of course, yeah. And I think that that's definitely something that you learn, especially if you grow up in an immigrant family.
That's true.
Because I think for both of our cultures, just having intergenerational, like, contact with your grandparents, your great uncles and aunts, your cousins, is just extremely important because that's how you take care of your family, basically. It's not just one family unit, which I think is nice.
It is.
That's all for today. Thanks for joining us this week. Be sure to click the bell icon and subscribe to the MyConsultant.ca channel. For more information on the information we talked about this week, be sure to visit MyConsultant.ca, where you can speak to an authorized immigration and citizenship consultant. I'm Adrian Quijano.
And I'm Sarah Ostapchuk.
And we'll see you next week. Bye!
Bye, everyone.